Story 1. Emily had been single for a while and decided to try her luck with online dating. She matched with a guy named David, and they arranged to meet up for a blind date at a local restaurant. As she arrived, she found David waiting outside. He looked just like his pictures, tall, dark hair, and a charming smile. Emily was excited to get to know him better. They sat down and ordered their food, and the conversation flowed easily. But as the night wore on, Emily began to feel uneasy. David's responses seemed rehearsed, and his smile never quite reached his eyes. Suddenly, Emily's phone buzzed with a text from a friend. She excused herself and went to the bathroom to check it. As she stood at the sink, she heard a soft whisper behind her. "Emily, do you like horror stories?" She whirled around, but there was no one there. She shook it off and hurried back to the table. But the unease lingered, and Emily found herself glancing over her shoulder throughout the meal. As they were getting ready to leave, David leaned in and whispered, "I have a surprise for you. Follow me." Emily hesitated but eventually agreed to follow him. He led her to a dark alleyway, and she heard the sound of footsteps behind her. Suddenly, he pushed her into a small room, and the door locked behind them. David revealed that he was a serial killer who lured his victims on blind dates. Emily tried to escape, but it was too late. She became his next victim, just another horror story for him to tell. Story 2. Sarah had been single for a while, and her friends thought it was time she got back into the dating game. They set her up on a blind date with a guy named Tom, who seemed nice enough from their brief online chat. They arranged to meet at a small coffee shop on the edge of town. As she walked in, she saw Tom sitting at a table in the corner, a broad smile on his face. He stood up to greet her and offered her a seat. As they sipped their coffee, Sarah found Tom charming and witty. They talked about their interests, families, and future goals. Everything seemed perfect, and Sarah felt the night couldn't get any better. But as they finished their coffee, Tom suggested a walk in the nearby park. Sarah hesitated but finally agreed. As they walked through the park, the conversation started to die down, and Sarah felt a bit awkward. Suddenly, Tom stopped walking and turned to her. "Sarah, I have a confession to make. I'm not who you think I am." Sarah's heart skipped a beat as she looked at him with confusion. "I'm actually a shape-shifter, and I can transform into any animal I want," Tom continued. Sarah scoffed, thinking it was a joke, but Tom's face remained serious. Suddenly, his features started to contort, and he transformed into a wolf. Sarah tried to run, but it was too late. The wolf chased her down and pounced on her, sinking his teeth into her neck. The next day, Sarah's body was found in the park, mauled to death by an animal. The police never found the perpetrator, and the town was left with a chilling mystery of the blind date gone wrong. Story 3. Lena was excited about her blind date with James, a charming and successful businessman who promised to take her to the best restaurant in town. As she arrived at the restaurant, she was greeted by a well-dressed man who introduced himself as James. They sat down and started chatting, and Lena found herself drawn to his charisma and charm. But as the night wore on, she noticed something strange. Every time she mentioned something about her personal life, James seemed to know everything about her, even the most private details. Feeling uneasy, Lena made an excuse to go to the bathroom and quickly called her best friend, Rachel. Rachel listened to Lena's story and urged her to leave immediately. But as Lena returned to the table to tell James she was leaving, she saw him staring at her with dark, empty eyes. Suddenly, his handsome face contorted into a grotesque mask, revealing sharp teeth and glowing eyes. Lena tried to run, but James was too fast. He grabbed her arm, and she could feel his cold, clammy skin against hers. Lena screamed, but no one could hear her as James dragged her out of the restaurant. The next day, Lena's body was found in a nearby alleyway, brutally mangled and covered in bite marks. The police never caught James, and Lena's death became a cautionary tale for anyone considering a blind date with a stranger. Story 4. Jenny was thrilled when she matched with a guy named Mark on a dating app. He seemed charming and funny, and they arranged to meet for a blind date at a cozy bar in the city. As she arrived, she saw Mark sitting at the bar, a glass of whiskey in his hand. He was tall and handsome, with piercing blue eyes that seemed to look right through her. Jenny felt a flutter of excitement in her stomach as she walked up to him. They sat down and ordered a round of drinks, and the conversation flowed easily. But as the night wore on, Jenny started to feel uneasy. Mark's questions became increasingly personal, and she noticed he was staring at her intently, as if trying to read her thoughts. Suddenly, Mark leaned in and whispered, "Jenny, I have a confession to make. I'm actually a vampire." Jenny laughed nervously, thinking it was a joke, but Mark's expression remained serious. He revealed his fangs and reached out to touch her hand. Jenny recoiled, horrified, and tried to get up from the table. But Mark was too fast. He grabbed her by the arm and pulled her closer, sinking his teeth into her neck. Jenny screamed as she felt her life force draining away. The other patrons at the bar didn't seem to notice, as if they were under some kind of spell. By the time the police arrived, it was too late. Jenny's body lay lifeless on the floor, drained of blood. Mark had disappeared without a trace, leaving behind only a chilling reminder of the dangers of blind dates with strangers.